Now,
Yeah.
this is something that I wanted to ask you about. When it comes to Argentinian Malbec and some Malbecs I have tasted from elsewhere, there is this elusive floral violet note that I find one of the most attractive things to ever come from a quality Malbec. What brings that about? Now, one of the reasons I'm asking this is when I opened this a few days ago, I made a point of opening it on a flower day in the biodynamic calendar. Whether you place any stock in that whatsoever, I do not know. I definitely noted the violets on that day. They're still there, but they're a little bit more reserved today. Today is it turned into a fruit day not all that long ago, and the fruit is definitely pushed to the fore here. Now, both of you, with all your experience with your wines, do you think that's a load of rubbish?
Well, for sure, the violets are typical of the Uco Valley, and they're very strong in this southern part of the Uco Valley where Paraje Altamira is. And it's there actually is a chemical peak. If you do the sensory analysis of the wine, there'll be a chemical peak they're the notosoprenoides. I don't know the name in English, but there's an actual molecule that
Yes,
gives
yes.
this floral aromatic, and it's particularly high from wines from this region. It's a combination we have here of cool climate and lots of sunlight. Why we get that, I don't know, but it is more common in cool climate Malbec than in warm climate Malbec. So we think it has something to do with the coolness of the climate and maybe the sunlight. Now, in terms of what you said of the biodynamic calendar, I can answer your question about, is it a bunch of baloney or not?
Yeah.
So I can't say that because I have to say that I've tasted wines made by biodynamic producers, and I think they're fantastic. And, all biodynamic vineyards are organic. So that's, a vineyard that's, hopefully they're not using too much copper sulfite, but, that's really mindful of the ecosystem. But when, I started hearing so much about biodynamics about 20 years ago, and I asked myself, why would I use in Argentina a theory of agriculture that somebody came up with in Austria in the early 1800s? Somebody who most likely had never been to Argentina. Why would this work in Argentina? Because I have different microbes. We've done microbial analysis of our soils, and we've actually found microbes that had never been described in the world, and we've sent them to a registry of microbes. We have different animals in our vineyard. We have different insects. Our Malbec Marsal selections are pre-phylloxeric. They no longer exist in Europe. Why would what works there work with me? Maybe we need to look more at what the native peoples of Argentina did.
Yep. Yeah.
What people who came in the 18th, 19th, and 20th century, all the immigrants from Spain and Italy that are today the wine-producing families, the traditions they brought to Argentina and adapted from their European homelands to the terroir. My great-grandfather used to say that, he thought that Argentina could produce better wine than Italy, where he came from, but his main problem was the yields were too low, because he said the yields were higher in Italy, and we have these well-drained soils and very little water. So, all this came together in Argentina, the work of the native peoples that created the canals, without which we wouldn't have water, all this influence from all these immigrants. And so why would what Rudolf Steiner came up with in Europe in the 19th century be better than this cumulative knowledge of my people? So I am not against biodynamics. I love wines made with biodynamic principles, and I have so many friends that use those principles. But what we have named Catenamics, because Catena, no, and I'm going to tell you why it makes sense, because Catena, do you know what Catena means in Italian and in Latin?
I don't want to take a mad guess.
Marina knows.
So tell me.
So Catena means chain. So to me, Catena is the chain of life, and I don't know why my name is Catena. It's actually a name from Marche and Abruzzo. My family is from Marche, so it's an old name. But I think of Catena as the chain of life and the interconnectedness between people, animals, insects, vines, history, culture, And so Catenamics is the use of science to preserve nature and culture. And this is the goal of the Catena Institute, where we study the soils, the microbes, the climate. We study what's happening with climate change. We study the selections we have planted in our vineyards. We study people, because many people are now leaving for the cities. They don't want to live in the countryside. This is a problem for farmers all over the world. And you're not going to fix the problem by just telling people, hey, why don't you stay in the countryside? That's not going to work out. So we are actually applying programs and studying what can we do to keep people. One solution is pay them more. We're doing that. But sometimes what people want is not just money. They want good schools for their children. They want good roads. They want electricity. They want internet. And so we believe in Catenamics, but I am also a supporter of biodynamic wines. Sorry for the very long answer.
No, I'll just edit you all out, Laura. No, I'm joking. So
I actually have one more comment in regards to violets, because I think it's very cool and very important, specifically if you're studying wine. I think like people have, sometimes not everyone, have this kind of old idea in which all Malbec tastes the same, and that's so 90s and that's so old. And when you grab the whole appellation series, in which we have like 4 different Malbecs, from all the way to the Primera Zona to the first zone to the way higher in elevation, to me, that is the key. The violet is the key to blind tasting a higher elevation Malbec, because a Malbec from Lunlunta does not taste nowhere near the Malbec from Paraje Altamira, and that's a fantastic blind tasting to me tip.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I've been talking a lot about drinking alcohol in moderation. In fact, during Dry January, I was releasing our new book, Malbec Mon Amour, which, have you received a copy?
Not as yet, no.
So Malbec Mon Amour, Marina, we got to get a copy to Jamie.
Oh, yes.
So we released it in Argentina in December. It's been a sensation. For the first time, a wine book was on the bestseller list in Argentina. And then we released it. It's actually for sale in Europe, US and Canada. And it was reviewed by the New York Times, which, as you know, is a very big deal. And the book is selling really well. So because there was the book launch in January, I got interviewed about drinking in moderation for Dry January.
Of course, yeah.
And my recommendation is actually to not drink every day. The studies are showing that it's actually good to not drink any alcohol for 2 to 3 days a week. And then that's what moderation is. It's not just about drinking less. Don't drink a whole bottle. Don't drink more than 2 glasses on a day that you drink. Maybe even less, but also skip a few days. So, I think that if somebody notices that there's certain days that they enjoy wine less, maybe instead of drinking even a beer, like try to have nothing. Although that's easier said than done.
Oh, I hear what you're saying there. My wife doesn't drink, so she has me on this whole regime where I have a dry couple of days, and then
quite
often I'll try to be dry during the week. But because of what I do for a living, speaking with people like yourselves and tasting wine like this, that doesn't always work out. It depends, but there is definitely something to be said for giving your system a little bit of a break from alcohol. Well, we went off on quite a few tangents there today. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us from San Francisco and Vancouver, respectively. Both of these wines are available right now in Ontario, and I've been enjoying them very, very much. So thank you very much for tasting through them today with me, telling me a little bit of the background, and we shall hopefully catch up with you again very soon.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catch up soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.